It has been over a year since I last made my Jujutsu Kaisen video, and in that video, I talked about how much I really hated this series. I hated this series so bad. Now, it's been a year, the manga has ended, so, was JJK really that terrible? Yes. Yeah, I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. This series is still god awfully bad, and it genuinely baffles me at how literally any of this got even approved by Shonen Jump. It's actually genuinely insane at how much Akutami just sabotaged his own series, and it really makes me wonder why. There's so many things that could have been great in this series, and yet everything just downhill. Now, the reason why I'm even making another video on this in the first place is because I realized that a year ago that I kind of glossed over a lot of points, and I never really went into detail on how terribly, just objectively written this series is, and its big moments too, and especially some of its characters. So now I'm going to go into a bigger, deeper dive as to why JJK is just not a good series, and its fall off actually needs to be studied. I've never seen a series fall off so hard. Now, disclaimer, this video is going to be very long, and I'm going to be speaking from the heart. I am not using any script. I'm not using any notes or nothing. This is all coming straight from the heart, and just strap yourself in if you're willing to listen to some person just rant about a series they used to love very much. Let's start all the way back from the beginning. It's the year 2020, the pandemic is at an all-time high, and, everyone was stuck indoors. We all know how the pandemic went. It was such a crazy time to be in. Here I am scrolling on Instagram, and I come across a couple of Jujutsu Kaisen manga panels, and I thought, it looked really cool, and I was like, hey, let me check it out. Fun fact though, when I first got into the series, the only reason I even got into the series was because of this panel of Panda, because I was such a cringe-ass shitlord memer back in the day. So here I am reading the manga, and I'm just having an absolute blast with it. And I think when I caught up to the manga at the time, I think the manga just finished the Shibuya arc, and let me tell you, reading the Shibuya arc back in 2020, it really is the definition of absolute cinema at the time, because, man, it felt like Jujutsu Kaisen was perfect at the time. It felt like there were no flaws and all that, because of just how masterfully just Akutami just handled a lot of things at the time. And it's just that kind of thing where it's like, because there's so much great things happening at the time, you just kind of subconsciously forget all the negatives that were in Jujutsu Kaisen at the time. And don't get me wrong, the first half of JJK is still great to this day, but even then, the first half of JJK has its faults, which I will go over. But for now, I'm still going to be talking about my personal experience with JJK. Now, because my personal experience with JJK is a very long one, I'm going to basically summarize my thoughts on some of the arcs that came afterwards. So, let me quick fire them. The Zenin Extermination sub-arc, great. The Hikari acquirement bit, really fucking boring. The Culling Games, ass. And the final arc, the Shinjuku Showdown, ass. But yeah, that's literally my quick fire round. That's genuinely how much JJK has fallen off since the Shibuya arc, and It's really crazy to really think about that. Now, what makes me think that Jujutsu Kaisen is terrible, though? Well, it all boils down to many things, so I'm going to go over them one by one. And first off, it's characters. Now, I'm going to be honest here, fellas. I genuinely have no idea where to start with this one. Jujutsu Kaisen's cast of characters is seriously one of the most underwhelming casts I've ever seen in all of anime and manga because of how just poorly utilized they all were after the Shibuya arc. So, let me go over, in my personal opinion, some of the bigger, genuine, honest-to-God problems with the characters and the cast and how they were utilized. Let's go over Yuji Itadori, our main character. Holy Jesus, goddamn Christ. Yuji is seriously... No, let me backtrack. I'm sorry. Yuji was one of the main characters back in 2020 that I don't want to say I looked up to, but I related to him on such a personal level. He was genuinely one of the big things that I remember just kind of relating myself to in fiction. And to see how Yuji was just poorly handled and just yikes. It's so sad to see how bad he fell off as both a main character and just a character in general. Now, I believe this all became a huge problem when the Culling Games started. The Culling Games should have focused on Yuji. I'm sorry, that should be a number one fact. Because the number one fact of storytelling is that the most important characters in your story is both the main villain and the main character. And the main character should have the most screen time out of every single character in the story. That should be a fact by now. I know a lot of people want to say that main character will take up too much screen time, yada yada yada, side characters won't be able to get their time to shine, yada yada yada. And I get that complaint. However, there comes a time where in order for the story to actually just properly get going, you have to have your main character be the central focus. And for a character that has everything riding on his shoulders due to him being the vessel for Sukuna, you would think that he would have the most screen time in the entire Culling Games arc, right? Wrong. There are dead-ass, I don't know how many chapters in total, but flash them on screen right now. That is how many chapters that after the Higuruma fight with Yuji, that is the last we see of Yuji for that many chapters. That is genuinely stupid. I understand that they wanted to focus on, or really Akutami wanted to focus on, the other characters and how their plans are going to come into fruition so that they can have this big giant backup plan against Kenjaku and whatever. But at the same time, there comes a time where, fuck all that, you need to focus on the main character. And we don't get any of that. Yuji also has this great character setup where he believes, he's nothing but just a cog in the machine, right? He just has this one set role. But then, when he pulls out his ass pull of a domain expansion, which, oh my god, I'm gonna get over all that, trust me. Whenever he pulls out his domain expansion, he goes on this main character speech that, for some reason, I saw a lot of people take it like it is the deepest piece of media they've ever consumed, and it's so inspiring. But when I read the speech, I'm sorry, where was this setup for this arc, or for this final bit? Because there was no setup for it. It's just all of a sudden he now believes that character, or you as a person, don't really need to have a set role to be fulfilled in life. You could just do something as basic as, I don't know, this, that, and the other, and then you don't have to feel like you're burdened by to have a role in life. And the thing is that the idea isn't the problem. It's the execution of it that's the problem. Because a few chapters earlier, the fucking narrator, I will go over the narrator because that is actually something I do not see people critique this series about. The narrator still says for Yuji that Yuji still believes that he's nothing but a cog in the machine after Choso died. Another big, huge problem with Yuji as a character is that after, he shows back up again, he's so boring. He doesn't have a really properly shown character growth, because that's this entire series' problem. This series is just bam, 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 bam. We go from plot point A to B to C to D to E. It's stupid. There comes a time where you have to slow your roll, because when you move a series too quickly, you end up having this big problem where characters are no longer the focal point anymore. Characters drive the story of everything. That is also a number one fact about storytelling. Characters make the story. Just because the story might not be super great or whatever doesn't mean the characters suck, because the characters can make a story super great. But in this case, however, it's both, where both the characters suck and the story sucks. And when Akutami decided to just blitz through everything, we missed out on many chapters worth of actual proper character development that isn't just an ass pull. And speaking of ass pulls, I talked about this earlier. Yuji's domain expansion, what even is its ability? We do not know. It comes out last second, and I understand that a lot of people were like, well, it was going to come out at some point. We all knew that. And I knew it too. We all knew Yuji was going to have a domain expansion. That is a fact. However, my biggest issue with this domain expansion is, one, the timing of it, and two, what's even its ability? Because when you have something as massive as the main character getting the ability that has been stated to be the pinnacle of Jujutsu, you kind of have to explain what his ability is. And I understand that Bleach is JJK's biggest inspiration, but I genuinely think Akutami thought that the Yawak Ichigo bit at the final bit of the ending of Bleach, where Ichigo just all of a sudden has the original Zangetsu, even though we thought his... I'm not even going to go over all that. Just know that was also really bad. And we don't even have a proper explanation for that, too. Hopefully the anime explains it, but I don't have too much hope on that. But whatever the case is that anything that Akutami was inspired from Bleach, he might as well have got inspired by the wrong things. And having Yuji have a domain expansion isn't the problem. It's the timing of it and whatever the hell its ability is. Is its ability just a giant flashback machine? Is that what all those memory things, the thingamafuckers were throughout the entire series, where characters just all of a sudden had this fake memory? Don't know. And the timing of it is, why did Yuji have to pull it out now? There's no explanation where I don't know if they did that stupid binding vow bullshit that characters started spamming out of nowhere in the end of the series, where there's none of that, where Yuji said, oh, I made a binding vow to where he can use the domain expansion as long as nobody else is in the area. There's none of that. There's no explanation of why he decided to use it now, because if that's the case, why couldn't he just use it at the very beginning? I don't know. Just, there's no explanation for his domain expansion in anything. It just comes out last second. And the problem with that is, despite it being the pinnacle of sorcery, his fucking domain expansion was already this close to breaking before another big plot armor saving ass pull comes out of nowhere, that being of Nobara. So going back to, Yuji's failed character arc, the reason why it's such a failure and why his conclusion doesn't work is because there's no build up to it. Because the entire series, up until his final good guy, main character, Optimus Prime ass speech, is the same thing where he believes he has a set role. I mean, hell, that one random ass moment where before he somehow whiffs a backstab on Sukuna, he says, I'm a Jujutsu sorcerer, as if that's supposed to mean anything, because it's like, yeah, bro, we know you're a Jujutsu sorcerer, and not only that, what does this mean? There should have been, I don't care if, it's cliched and whatnot, but there should have been like 2 or 3 lines of dialogue of Yuji coming to this conclusion. But all of a sudden, it's just Sukuna messes up Higuruma. Damn, he messes up Higuruma, and Yuji does this a little mini speech. Then says he's a Jujutsu sorcerer. But no, instead, we don't get that. Instead, it's just straight to the point. And whilst being straight to the point can work, it didn't work in this case because it's just so out of left field and doesn't really mean anything. It comes so out of left field that it would kind of be like this. It would be like if Thorfinn from Vinland Saga, where at first, he starts off as an angry, spiteful kid. We all know how he was in season 1, but then when we go to season 2, all of a sudden he's it skips immediately to him being like, I have no enemies and whatnot, and finally learning his father's lesson that Thor's tried telling Thorfinn. But thank God that didn't happen in Vinland Saga. But God knows that if Vinland Saga was written by Akutami, we all know that would happen. It makes no sense to just cut straight to something as important as a main character's character arc being basically speed ran with no dialogue that indicates that Yuji was going to go from we all have a set role to we don't really need to have a role to be fulfilled in life. It makes no sense to just go from point A to point Z in a matter of seconds. Now on to Megumi Fushiguro. Holy shit. I've never seen a character be fumbled so hard other than this character. That's an exaggeration. There are many characters I've seen got fumbled, but Fushiguro is one of those characters where I just feel bad for. Not because I feel bad for him on a character level or anything like that. I feel bad for him because of how just mishandled he was in the series. And the biggest problem with Fushiguro is we actually never saw his true potential from him himself, which is a big no-no. When you have a character that everyone loves to gas up to the high heavens, that he has potential like this and that and like no other and yada yada yada, potential this, potential that, some of the most doomed failing sayings in all of anime and manga. Whenever you have a character that says they have potential, you either know that character is not going to be able to live up to it, because most of the time it just falls flat on its face. And Fushiguro has to be the worst example of that said archetype. And it sucks to see, because unlike a lot of other stories where they ruin a character's air quotes potential by just constantly have them lose or just be made a fool out of, Fushiguro, in this case, Akutami decided to do something which is even worse. He actually made his potential be realized through another fucking character, that being Sukuna. So at that point, it's just kind of like, what was the point then? Why do we need to see Fushiguro's potential be realized through another character? That is automatically a bad writing decision, because then it's not Fushiguro's potential anymore. It's actually more so Fushiguro just fucking sucks at using his abilities. Like, how do you suck so bad at using your abilities? Like, it goes to show that this series just, its biggest problem, or one of its biggest problems, is its pacing. I would not have minded a generic, boring, just mediocre or anything, just like training arc where it shows Fushiguro actually showing off his true potential. We don't even know his actual true complete domain expansion. what was the point of him having an incomplete one? It goes to show that Akutami probably just had no idea what to do with this guy. And it makes it worse because Fushiguro, after his fight with Reggie, nothing much happens to him as a character anymore because he kind of skip over a lot of things. And I thought, with this whole Sumiki thing, we're going to get actual deep insight into Fushiguro's character and whatnot. But nope, we had to skip all the way to Sumiki is actually just that stupid-ass reincarnation bullshit or whatever the fuck it really was with Yorozu, which is another thing I'm going to get into, which is a whole category in of itself, but whatever. Nothing much happens with him because guess what? He ends up being taken over by goddamn Sukuna, and then nothing much happens to Fushiguro as a character. And what's even worse is this. Fushiguro fucking gives up on life. Now, with this situation, I can understand why he just gives up. But then you have another problem. Yuji, by the way, watched thousands of people probably get killed because of Sukuna taking over his body in Shibuya. But Yuji, being the Chad he was at the time, he stands up and just says, I have to keep going on. Now, don't get me wrong, he started crying and started being all like he wants to die already. And, that's a fair reaction, but he immediately stood up and just said he has to go forward and move on. Fushiguro watches his sister, whom, by the way, we don't have any real true interactions between the two. And I understand that she was in a coma for the series and whatnot, but there was only one or a couple of flashbacks of Fushiguro with his sister, and that's it. There should have been many scenes of Fushiguro and Sumiki being together so that we can actually give a fuck for Sumiki when she died, or air quotes Sumiki, but whatever, it doesn't matter. But he watches his sister die, and he fucking gives up on life. And then, when everyone is fighting for Fushiguro, he still doesn't care, he just wants to die, he wants everything to be over. But then, for some reason, when Yuji is telling Fushiguro that everything would just be lonely without him, all of a sudden, Fushiguro wants to lock in. That is so contrived and so poorly handled and so just badly written. Because at that point, he should just bounce back way earlier in the series if all it was just going to take Yuji to just be crying and being like, hey man, everything would be lonely without you. That makes no sense. Why did it take that one word when it should just happen way earlier when literally everyone was fighting for this guy to save him from Sukuna's grasp? And then, man, oh man, that ending. Now, I'm not skipping straight to it, but I'm talking about Fushiguro's conclusion as a character. Man, oh man, that ending where for some reason, by the way, I gotta say this. I said this many times to myself and to friends of mine who were also very frustrated with this series. I said that Fushiguro needs to have a scene, and I said it should be 2 pages, 3 pages, or whatever the hell long it should be, of Fushiguro after he gets released from Sukuna or whatever, that he starts breaking down, he starts crying, he starts apologizing, he starts everything. He becomes an actual vulnerable character for once. But we don't get that. Instead, Maki just says, nah, you don't need an apology. What? The fuck? No, that's not how people work. I'm sorry. Listen, whenever I get really mad, I end up doing that weird thing with my voice. So I'm pretty sure that comes out of complete left field and a complete surprise. But whatever the case is that if you were personally being taken over by some madman, and that madman using your body got many people you cared about killed, and you're finally free from him, you would not just be like locking in and stone facing. you would actually just be breaking down and crying and losing your mind, you blame yourself, yada, yada, yada. That's what would happen. But no, Fushiguro doesn't get that scene. And I say that was actually the nail in the fucking coffin for Fushiguro's character. A character that, by the end of the series, he is still the exact same stoic, edgy, uninteresting character. Because, unfortunately, Fushiguro just never had any, proper screen, I want to say screen time, but he never had any proper scenes to make me or just anybody with common sense and knows what storytelling is to actually give a fuck for him. And now let's get into the fucking big meaty one, the most... I've never seen a character get assassinated this bad in my life ever until this series. But let's get on to Gojo Satoru. Holy goddamn shit. Oh man, what did Akutami do to this man? So, first of all, I want to say this, and I want to give a huge shout out to a friend of mine who said that this fucking image of Gojo laying dead is pretty much this generation, or new anime fans' generation, of the Yamcha death pose, which was very funny to say the least. But whatever the case is that, holy goddamn Christ. Akutami assassinating Gojo's character should have been the thing I expected, but I still didn't expect it when it happened. So first off, let's just go out and say this. Was Gojo's death bullshit? Yes. Him dying off screen like that is so dumb. Or not really dying, but just immediately showing how he was even in the state that he was before he died was dumb. You don't just off-screen something as major of an attack as World Slash. It's so stupid, because then only 2 chapters later, I believe, we are revealed World Slash. And it's like, so what was the point? You could have just done this, where Gojo approaches Sukuna, and then it's like completely silence, no dialogue or whatever, and then all of a sudden, Sukuna sends out World Slash, and then all of a sudden we're shown the airport. And that would be so much better. And it adds it would add a little bit of intrigue, but the thing is, it was a slash, but how the hell did it get through infinity? And then he finally explains it properly, and which is something I'm actually going to get into later, but, with this stupid cursed energy power system, which I will also rant about. But whatever the case is, yes, Gojo dying off screen, or really being in the state that he was off screen, bad writing all over the place. You just don't show that, especially to the most popular character of the series, and who we thought was the strongest character in the series. So the character assassination bit that I was talking about, it starts off with the fact that for some reason, Gojo's character gets completely retconned into being that he only did this for himself, and he only cared about finally having fun. And also that stupid ass saying of him saying, even if Sukuna didn't have the 10 shadows technique, even then I probably thought I wouldn't win, or whatever the fuck he said. Which that's actually a Sukuna rant, which I will get into, but that's after this. But him just he was basically in it for himself, which basically assassinates Gojo's entire character of him being a teacher in the first place. Why the hell would he be a teacher for Jujutsu, if he was actually just going to be in it for himself? Because then at that point, Akutami should have just made Gojo a villain, or something like that. But no, instead he's actually a good guy, but for some reason, I just only was in it for myself, when his actions clearly dictate otherwise. He literally also insinuates that the reason why he's doing what he is doing is so that the new generation of Jujutsu sorcerers can make the Jujutsu world, or really the higher-ups, better, so that they can take over. And it's like, so what was the point if he was supposedly in it for himself? It makes no sense. You just can't make this shit up. Akutami tried his hardest, but I can see right through him. I know what kind of man he is. Sukuna. What a horrible villain. Oh, Jesus, God, help me. This villain is some of the worst I have ever seen in all my time reading fiction. I am dead serious. He is that bad. So what's the problem with him? What's the problem with him? He is so one-dimensional, and it's kind of Akutami's fault, to be honest with you. A part of me wants to say it's not really Sukuna's fault, because it's not like Sukuna himself is writing the story or whatever. It's obviously Akutami's fault, but Sukuna is such a bland villain. He is literally the most stereotypical villain you will ever see in your entire life. And that is so sucky to say, because Sukuna used to be that guy. He used to be one of my favorite anime villains, and, all that. But then all of a sudden he just dropped downhill. Holy goddamn Christ. And it's all because of one thing. No character. He is the exact same thing over and over and over again. He is stereotypical in the sense that he is constantly belittling the main character. He is doing very evil, sadistic things. And yet, we don't know why he does the way he does. Now, I don't want to hear the excuse of, well, he's a villain, of course you gotta do that. Or the excuse of, well, he seeks the strong over the weak. He says it multiple times, and yada, yada, yada. I don't want to hear that, because while those are excuses, they're not great excuses, because we don't know if that's actually the excuse. And it's all down to one thing. No backstory for this guy. And but Rexford, you gotta understand, man. If he had a backstory, it would ruin everything. Not every villain needs a backstory. That's what I hear all the time whenever I see people, or whenever I personally critique Sukuna. Well, no, not really. I personally critique him. It's just I see that counter argument all the time, and it frustrates the ever-living bullshit out of me. It's the most god-awful comeback to an actual needed critique. Every villain needs a backstory except for two villain archetypes. One, if the villain is literally just recently created. So in literally this series' own story, Mahito was literally just created. He has just been born, basically. So it's not like he grew up in a sucky life or whatever and he just decided to become evil. No, he literally was just created. Or two, I guess this could coincide for just being recently created, but robot villains. Robot villains or whatever, they are mainly only made to serve one purpose, which is to probably just kill someone. For example, obviously, the Terminator or something like that. He is literally only created just to kill Sarah Connor at first. So he didn't need a devastating backstory or whatever. Sukuna, on the other hand, has obviously stated and insinuated that he grew up. It wasn't like he was created. He literally, first off, he was definitely a human at once in a point of his life, because he was literally in a womb, and he ate his literal brother in the womb. However that fucking works. Did that dude have teeth or something? Whatever. And then he grew up an unwanted child, according to him. And it's like, okay, you got setups there, so where's the actual proper backstory? Nowhere to be seen. The reason why the backstory thing needs to happen is because we need a final, full conclusion of how Sukuna became the way he is. And we never got that. A backstory in the Heian era would have done wonders for both Sukuna and Kenjaku as a character, but I will get into Kenjaku. It is just that kind of thing where it's just, he needed a backstory. We needed to know why he is the way he is, and we never got that. That is very poor storytelling. And I know a lot of people say, well, you would end up turning him into a sympathetic villain. No, the fuck you wouldn't. You could still portray Sukuna as a god-awful person in the Heian era. You didn't have to make him have a sad backstory. You could have just made him a backstory just dedicated to an evil guy. There's nothing wrong with having a backstory arc that's focused on a villain and how they became the way they are, especially if they are a pure evil asshole like Sukuna. But again, we never got that. So not a lot of things are really properly answered for Sukuna as a character. And you can only kind of just come up with just little nuggets of like information or theories or whatever why he is the way he is. And it's just very poor storytelling to have Sukuna, of all characters, especially the main villain of the series, to just be so flat in the same thing over and over and over again. Sukuna's hatred for Yuji is also so badly just portrayed. Because, for example, Maki is borderline the same thing as Yuji. They both require or do actually rely on their physical strength. That's the whole point of both of them. But for some reason, Maki gets the credit, but Yuji doesn't. How does that work? Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, well, Maki had heavenly restriction, so she was actually able to push past her boundaries, while Yuji was just a normal, air quotes, normal kid. And yet he could have had the strength to be strong, but he just didn't have it in him or whatever, which is bullshit, because Yuji, who keeps on fighting strong curses and strong characters throughout the series, and yet Sukuna still is just like, nah, little brat, nah, brat, you ain't nothing, brat. It's the same fucking thing over and over and over again. It's like, can you come up with a different insult for once? Like, shit, man. And it's just, oh my god. And then Sukuna, by the way, Sukuna's conclusion also sucks hard, major dick, because the problem with it is that Yuji basically talk no jutsu'd him. When he is talking to Mahito or whatever, and he basically said that he has two choices now, and he just basically is insinuating that he will be reborn, but as a different person with a different outlook on life, and yada yada yada. What the fuck, man? He basically got talk no jutsu'd out of being a bad guy by Yuji. Talk no jutsu, or talking your villain out of being a bad guy, is seriously some of the dumbest things I've seen in a long time. I don't think that should ever be the case. I think villains just do not need to be talked out of being a bad guy. It should just always be, just beat them up. How about that? But, it said Yuji actually took a note out of Naruto's book and said, let me convince this pure evil asshole who's been ruining my life for the past few months, and let me just, talk him out of being a bad guy. Why? Now I know Yuji said that he will kill him if he doesn't, and granted, Yuji did kill him, he wasn't lying, but the problem is that Sukuna still took Yuji's words into consideration and still chose to be a good guy when he gets reborn. If he truly was an evil, conniving, asshole villain, he would have chosen to still be reborn as a bad guy, because that's just who he believes he is, just a curse, and the strongest curse of them all. But no, instead, I'm going to be reborn into a good guy. That is just lazy, in my opinion at least. Now, remember when I said earlier about, in the Gojo bit, where, I said that the Ten Shadows thing was a Sukuna problem? Okay, so, first off, I hate it whenever I see people say that what Gojo said was fact. It is not fact, actually, because that is anime's biggest problem. They will say shit like this, and then the entire series just contradicts the statement. It is such a common phenomena in the entire world of battle manga. It is very funny, to say the least. And, one of the biggest examples I always think of that is how Naruto gasses up the Anbu to be like the most dangerous thing behind the Hokage, and yet they are nothing but a bunch of little bitches. Unlike Kakashi and Itachi, they're like one of the few examples that the Anbu actually, can be dangerous. But every other time the Anbu is shown in Naruto, they're nothing but bitches. So if we take Gojo's consideration as fact that Sukuna did not need the 10 Shadows technique to beat Gojo, then why the fuck did he take the 10 Shadows technique? Oh. Yeah, it goes to show that if that statement is true, which it's not, by the way, but a lot of people believe it is, let them cope, then Sukuna really didn't need to have the 10 Shadows technique, but he took it anyways. And also, that's another thing. Sukuna needing a whole other person's ability just to beat one guy has got to be some of the most contrived writing I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. Like, you're saying that Sukuna, the strongest sorcerer or curse in history, needed another person's technique to beat one fucking guy. Really? He could just easily domain amplification his way through Gojo's infinity like always. He could have just done that. And I understand that he explained why he needed Mahoraga, but at the same time, just run up on Gojo and use domain amplification then. Like, it's not even, I don't want to say it's not even that hard, because obviously we don't have cursed energy in the real world. But all I'm saying is that you have another option. And yet, and also, I just also think him taking another person's ability and somehow mastering it better than the actual wielder is also very stupid. And I don't want to hear the excuse of, well, he can copy techniques perfectly just by seeing them just once. So what the fuck is the point of Yuta's copy ability? It makes no sense. You can't have, the Sukuna bypasses everything about this story's power system. And I think it was just there to be an excuse as to how and why Sukuna can just do everything he can do. Because then you can make it hide under the moniker of, oh, it's because he's the strongest. I say it's because he's a cheater. And by the way, it's another thing about Sukuna and why we needed a Heian era backstory for this guy. What even made him the strongest? Who was he fighting back in the day? Was he fighting nothing but fucking farmers? And is that why he's hailed as the strongest? We need to know these things. A Heian era backstory should have been added. It should have been a thing. We need to see how he became the strongest. Because then I could easily say, I'm the strongest at this, but I have no competition because everyone else around me was weak. Which I think is a very lazy excuse to make him the strongest. I feel like he needed to earn that title. But who knows? Maybe he fought someone really strong in the Heian era and he beat them, and that's how he was hailed as the strongest. But we don't know that because no Heian era backstory or anything. This Sukuna is the definition of what happens when you make a villain that is clearly just there to be for your own personal just satisfaction. Because Akutami has gone on to say that Muzan is literally his favorite character in Demon Slayer, which is a villain, which makes me think that he really likes villains a lot, which is why he made Kenjaku and Sukuna just nothing characters, just like Muzan, but whatever. This is not a Muzan rant, this is a Sukuna rant. And Sukuna is very fucking terribly written because he is the same thing over and over and over again with no substance. We have nuggets of information, but no substance. We need substance. And he has no substance to him as a character. He is the same fucking thing over and over and over and over and over and over again until at the very end of the series, all of a sudden, he is just, I want to be a good guy now. Lazy. Absolutely lazy. Very lazy storytelling from Akutami. And then again, Akutami has pretty much given up on this series. Borderline at this point, but whatever. So, And to end off Sukuna one more time, his philosophy has got to be some of the most goddamn stupidest thing ever, because it's so all over the place. So he values the strong over the weak. That's the type of villain he is. He only appreciates the strong. But it is just like he gives his compliments to the wrong people. So for him to say it to Jogo made sense, because Jogo, in every sense of the word, is really strong. He really is. But the problem is that he is always fighting someone that's stronger than him, aka Gojo and Sukuna. They're the strongest of their craft. They're the strongest at their thing. So Jogo is never going to have a chance in hell. But Jogo is strong. He showed it during his fight with Sukuna. It's just, unfortunately, he was very outclassed. So it makes sense there. But for Maki, which I've already explained in my Yuji rant, or not really Yuji rant, just Sukuna rant, I'm already losing stuff, but whatever. He gives his compliments to Maki, but she's basically almost borderline the same thing as Yuji, but, you know, he gave her his compliments. Doesn't make sense at all. And I think the most damning one is Kashimo. Kashimo is such a jack shit, like, character. He does jack shit, basically. All he did was just punch him a couple times, and then he uses his real curse technique, which is some of the most underwhelming curse techniques in the whole series, by the way. And all of a sudden Sukuna is just like, huh, you're kind of like Gojo. I like you, guy. Hey, man, you're pretty good. Why does he need it? All he did was punch you one time really good. Oh, and I also forgot to mention Gojo, but Gojo's is very obvious why he needed that compliment. And he also gave a compliment to Higuruma, but in my eyes, oh god, Higuruma did not need that at all. All he did was just use domain amplification really good to save himself from flying slashes. And all of a sudden, both the story and Sukuna are saying that, well, no, the story is saying, because the narrator, that he has talent like Gojo, and all because Higuruma did domain amplification in some way to Sukuna. All of a sudden, oh, well, you deserve it to be acknowledged. And he says his name because I guess that's how he acknowledges Higuruma's name, or Higuruma. I don't know. It's just such an all over the place a philosophy, because it just doesn't make sense a lot of the time. Like, how are you complimenting this guy who doesn't deserve it, aka Kashimo, but then you're not going to compliment Yuji, who has done more than Kashimo has ever done? It's stupid. It really is. Now on to Kenjaku. Kenjaku, honestly, he shares the exact same problems as Sukuna. He needed a backstory, but, you know, obviously we never got that. And Kenjaku, just kind of being the way he is, he's so goddamn boring. It's so just insane to just say and think about. Like, he could have been a great villain, but no. He's instead one of the worst villains in all the anime and manga, in my opinion. He's that bad on the same level as Sukuna because of how fucking boring he is. And the thing is that I don't expect him to be up in every fight all the time, but he could have at least had something interesting to him. But no, there is nothing interesting to him. And honestly, I think Kenjaku was just an excuse to have Akutami just reuse Gito's design, because there are so many problems with Kenjaku using Gito's body. So, for example, he literally confronted Noritoshi Kamo about the Kamo clan and head and family and whatnot. He even literally said he is now the head of the family. How? Because first off, he's literally in Gito's body. He really is using Gito's body. And Gito is known to be a goddamn criminal in the Jujutsu world. And yet, no one bats an eye that, one, Gito is somehow walking around, and two, he's all of a sudden the head of the family clan.
or Combo Clan. That makes no sense. That would be like if someone just started brain hopping around as Bill Gates just walks up to goddamn Microsoft and is like, hey man, I'm going to be the owner of Microsoft now. Like, it just makes no sense, because Bill Gates, for that example, Bill Gates is literally fucking dead. He's dead, but someone's puppeteering his body. Like, you can't just have that happen at all. It's dumb. It really is.
And as much as I would like to go over the drop plot points of, like the stupid China talk where he went to China, which that never went anywhere, the bomb plan, that never went anywhere. There's so many things with Kenjaku that Akutami just put ideas up in there and then he just never went through with them. As much as I would like to go on in-depth reasonings as to why those suck, I think we can all agree why they suck is because nothing went anywhere with it. It's just there to be there. But I want to kind of finish off Kenjaku's thing really early, because Kenjaku suffers from everything I've been saying about Sukuna, except this is one thing that I genuinely think kills Kenjaku as a character and as a villain. So why did he need to create Yuji? He really didn't, when you think about it. Like, he literally purposely, first off, he took over Yuji's actual, like, mom's body for some reason. Secondly, he ended up having a kid with Sukuna's twin brother who got reincarnated, which is another thing as of why. And it's like, and then not only that, Yuji is literally the antithesis to Sukuna. Why did he need to do this? Don't know. Don't know. Why did he need to make it? Don't know. Why did he need to have Yuji? Don't know. He just did it, and we never got a proper explanation for all that. And it's really stupid, because it's like, why would you create something that you know is going to end up being a very big downfall, basically? And Kenjaku just did that for some reason, and again, it's just such lazy storytelling and a poor excuse to tie everything back to Kenjaku as like the evil mastermind, because one of the biggest things I hate about storytelling is that it's fine whenever there's a puppet master or someone behind the helm controlling everything behind the scenes, but it becomes less fun when it's literally the same character being behind literally everything. And so it's like, well, when a twist comes up, it's like, all right, well, we all know that this guy's behind it, so what's the point of being shocked and making it out to be like a twist? And so having Kenjaku being Yuji's mom, dad thing, whatever the hell you can even say, it's just stupid as to why he was even conceived in the first place. Because why did he need to do this? I know I keep repeating that, but it really is a good question. Why did he need to create Yuji? But, this story sucks anyways, so clearly Akutami just gave up. And another thing I gotta say, real quick, to end off Kenjaku's thing, this is something I kind of forgot to really say on Sukuna's part, but the plot armor on Kenjaku with that Tsukumo thing was so bad. But, oh wait, speaking of Tsukumo, the female characters in this series is so bad. It is so sad to even say that too, because watching the anime for the first time, I was just blown away at how good the women were in this series, because it was just kind of like, dang. And now it feels like every single woman in the series now wants to, they actually have something behind them, because unfortunately some older animes and manga kind of made it some stories has made their women just like an afterthought, basically, instead of making them actual integral parts of the story or whatever, or actually them doing something.
And that was the case for this series. Unfortunately, however, I gotta say, man, the women in this series is treated so much worse than how Naruto treated its female cast. And anybody who has read, watched, or seen Naruto knows how bad the female cast was in that series, except for a handful characters. But this one, I gotta say, there is no redeeming factor for the female characters in this series. They are all bad. And I'm gonna get the biggest one out of the way, and it's not Nobara, but don't get me wrong, I will go over Nobara. It's Maki. Maki sucks so hard. It is goddamn unreal at how much Akutami fumbled her. She is not Maki Zenin. She is Toji 2.0, Toji but girl, any other name but Maki Zenin. And that is so stupid. Now you might be saying, well, what brings you to that conclusion though? I mean, you're getting her character arc wrong. Nope, I'm not getting her character arc wrong. Yes, she might have fought for freedom, unlike Toji, who has been shackled by his past. But the problem with Maki is that she does everything the exact same way Toji does. She is a Toji reminder, and that's not a good thing to set for your character if all they are supposed to be is just a reminder of an already existing character. And that's simply not good at all, because a character, every single character in a series needs to be distinct from one another, no matter what. And it's fine if a character looks up to a character or another character, but the problem is that they cannot ever replicate themselves to be that way. They can try to be, they can start off that way, but then sooner down the line, they will have to just stop, because they have to be their own character at that point, because then they're just going to be a 2.0 character. And that's what happened to Maki. Everything she does is a Toji reminder. Her stabbing Sukuna right in the back is nothing but a reminder that that moment happened in the series way earlier, where Toji stabbed Gojo through the back. Except this time, it's even worse for Maki's case, because why didn't Maki just cut his head off when she had the chance? Because Sukuna couldn't see her coming. He didn't even sense her, because obviously, how could you? Or he stabbed him right through the dome. But, that didn't happen, because we gotta remind everyone, hey guys, Toji existed in this series. Them calling her a fighter that's equal and capable of Toji, or at least the narrator saying that is another example of this series trying its hardest to remind you that Toji was a character in this series, instead of this being a moment, a defining moment, might I add, for Maki Zenin as a character. And again, she even looks like Toji, just with burn marks all over her. That is so lame. And not only that, this is where I think this gets even more dumb. Maki has more screen time than Nobara, who was a part of the main group, by the way. And yet Maki has more screen time than her. So what's the point of having Nobara be part of the main group? It makes no sense. And again, another just thing that just sucks so hard about Maki is that she could have been a goddamn outstanding character. She had a great setup with that Zenin extermination arc. But no, instead, Akutami fumbled it so hard with that Naoya fight, which, by the way, is one of the worst fights in the whole series, by the way, because of one problem. It is so contrived. Maki getting her character growth / development, or whatever the fuck you want to call that disaster, is so contrived because of those two fuckballs coming in the middle of the fight and just all of a sudden giving her these life lessons that struck deep within her. It's so contrived. That is the definition of contrivance. You can't have something random come out of nowhere and then make a big impact. It makes no sense. And that's what happened here with Maki. all I'm saying is that scene or fight wouldn't have been so bad if it wasn't those two little assholes coming in to tell Maki this stuff. It either should have been Toto or fuck man, Kama was literally in the exact same fight. And guess what? That didn't happen. Instead it's sumo dude and sword guy coming in. And by the way, they don't show up ever again until the very near end of the series. And it's like, so what's the point? What was the point of them? They're just there to show up. And Maki just learns a deep life lesson from them? Are you kidding me? And at the very end of it all, the payoff is just, yeah, she's just on Toji's level now. Again, another reminder that she is not Maki Zenin. She is Toji 2.0. And that is filthy, disgusting, and downright deplorable at how Akutami decided to think that's how Maki's character should go. It should have been like this. She gets inspired of Toji. She tries to be like him, but then realizes she can't ever be like him. So she'll just be Maki Zenin and be able to pull off what Toji couldn't be able to. Now, I'm not saying that she needed to know Toji's history, but she could have achieved what Toji wanted without her knowing, and yet she still could have been Maki Zenin and not Toji 2.0. And the only time Maki ever became Maki as a character was at the near end of the series, where she again started acting like herself instead of her being like stoic and just, oh my god, Maki as a character is so frustrating because I've never seen anything like that before, where the author of a story tried their damnedest, their goddamn hardest to try to make you think that's the character that is shown on screen, but all you can do is think the other character, and that's what happened with Maki. Again, not Maki. That is Toji 2.0, and I am sick of seeing people actually think that Maki's character growth or development is legendary and that she's one of the best ever to do it. No, that is false on so many levels because of everything I just said so far. Now on to Nobara. Oh my god. If I had to say anything about Nobara, the number one word I would go for is wasted. Oh Jesus, Nobara should not have disappeared for as long as she did. I don't care what anybody says. She is supposedly a part of the main group. She is literally a part of Yuji and Fushiguro, who are two main characters. So that, of course, makes her the third main character. And yet, she disappeared for way too long. Because Kutami thought it was a great idea to, air quotes, kill her off at the halfway point of the series, by the way. And then all of a sudden she's brought back. Are you joking? Are you kidding me? Akutami should have just went the dramatic irony route where we, the audience, knows that she's alive, but the characters don't know, aka like Yuji or Fushiguro doesn't know. Because, I don't know, maybe they have some plan for her, but they just can't let Yuji and Fushiguro know at the time. But obviously, we didn't get that because that would make far too much sense. It really would, because then it would make Nobara's appearance don't appear out of nowhere and whatnot. I know that a lot of people have been saying and theorizing and yada 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 that Nobara has been alive for years now. And there is a lot of truth to those theories, but the problem is that she should have showed up so much earlier instead of at the ass end of the series, where she is literally nothing but a walking plot device now. So you're telling me that she just woke up from her comatose state, I guess, and everyone who saw her wake up was able to relay the information to her that of everything that's happening against the final battle with Sukuna, and she was able to get up and immediately be able to attack the finger? Are you serious, man? This series is so contrived. Like, it's so ridiculous at how just bad Akutami just likes writing shit, man. And obviously, I gotta also say this about Nobara. Oh man, she should. I know I said this before, but she should have just not disappeared for as long as she did. She really shouldn't have. She should have been a part of the story still, even if she couldn't interact with the main characters. Like, there's nothing wrong with showing that a character was actually alive the whole time, and then when they show up at last second with the group, then I feel like it's worth it. But in this case, it's just, she is gone for the entire series, but then, bam, she shows up, is able to help Yuji one last time, and then that's it. God, man, Nobara was such a wasted character, because her character arc should have been expanded, because, okay, in most storytelling, it goes like this for a character. You have your character set up, they have a goal, they have a motivation, something comes along in their way to halt that motivation, to make them think otherwise, make them think if it's not worth it, or they don't have the capabilities to be able to do so. But then at the very end, they either gain new resolve, or something to make them, or give them new motivation or something like that, like a new goal to reach or whatever. And that's what should have happened with Nobara, because Nobara's character setup could have been something like, well, no, not could have. It was that she doesn't mind being super girly. She doesn't mind, going around buying clothes and getting makeup and whatnot. She doesn't mind that. She really likes all that. But I don't know, man. I feel like if you're a person and you have a goal kind of like that, where you just kind of want to make yourself look good and pretty and whatever, but then all of a sudden your eye gets fucking blown out, you're not going to be looking at your body the same way. You're going to be looking at yourself like you're some sort of disformed creature or whatever. But then, that obviously didn't happen with Nobara, because, I don't know, she showed up last fucking second in this series. God, Akutami had just dropped the ball with so many characters in this series. And I gotta say, it's the female cast who got it the worst out of every single one of these characters. And when it comes down to him dropping the ball with all these characters, Yuki Tsukumo, oh my fucking Jesus God, man. Oh my God, I can't stand this fucking series, dude. Tsukumo should just either, if she needed to die, she did not need to die, not only that quick, but she did not need to die where basically her character was just pointless in the end. Because, okay, so her dying is stupid in the first place, because we barely know anything about her in general. Like, as far as I remember, because I couldn't be fucking bothered to go back and look over every Tsukumo scene to try to even remotely comb a nugget of information about her life. But my thing is this. Why did she need to die there? I would not have minded if she died against Sukuna or something like that. But no, instead, she has to die against Kenjaku. And by the way, her black hole attack, I still think is very fucking stupid to this day. The series did not need something as massive as a fucking black hole, basically. But whatever. Akutami loves giving every single one of his audience the middle finger like we're a bunch of fucking morons. But, whatever. And then, not only that, she tells Choso, like, really before she lets off that black hole attack, she just tells Choso to, live as a human or whatever, which is fine and whatnot, but we all know what happened after that. Choso dies, so it pretty much just makes it makes Tsukumo's entire character just pointless. Really pointless. Oh, no, I forgot to mention. No, the whole bit of that bit with this, Choso and Tsukumo, it really was just so that Yuji, she said that Yuji would be alone again if you were to die. And then obviously Choso dies. Yuji's pretty much became alone because of that. So again, it makes Tsukumo's entire point as a character, well, pointless. Because what was the point of her saying all that bullshit? Now, granted, Yuji isn't completely alone because he still has the group. But at the same time, it's like, what's the point of Tsukumo saying that then? It makes no sense. But, whatever. And again, the biggest problem with Tsukumo is the fact that, holy shit, man. Holy shit. No one mentions her after she dies. The only character that even remotely mentions her is, I believe, fucking Choso, but Choso was only doing it to relay information on what the fuck happened between him, Kenjaku, Tsukumo, and Tengen. That is the only thing that she's mentioned of. After that, she is never mentioned again, as if she's just a fucking afterthought. And that's stupid because she is an integral part to not only the world of Jujutsu, because of the fact that she is one of the 4 special grades, by the way, in the entire series, and yet she's not mentioned after she fucking dies, which is, again, stupid. And then the worst bit is that Todo doesn't fucking mention her or grieve for her, even though she is literally his teacher. She is the literal reason why Todo is even in this story in the first place, and yet she gets no mention, no nothing. Why did Akutami do this? Is he a fucking, an idiot? Like, I don't get it. I really fucking don't get how you write something this ass. Like, it doesn't take that much effort to remotely put any bit of, coherence in your story. It really fucking doesn't take that much, I promise you. And I know that the Shonen Jump schedule sucks. I really, really fucking do. But he should have had a goddamn editor or someone tell him that these decisions are just fucking terrible, and yet none of that, just none of that. And Tsukumo is just yet another fucking victim of Akutami's goddamn just shit writing. Yorozu, I just want to speed run this because I couldn't be fucking asked anymore to even keep going with this anymore. This series actually makes me feel like I'm about to fucking pop a blood vessel at how angry I get at this series. Tsukumo just sucks in general because of the fact that she's a literal nothing character and she's a literal walking plot device, because without her, we would not have gotten the Sukuna's little device thing in his hand, what the fuck that thing was called, but I can guarantee you that meant nothing in the end anyways, because that obviously that thing's curse technique gets immediately taken away by Higuruma. So it made Yorozu's entire existence as a character fucking pointless, and is only just there to include that stupid subplot with Sumiki and Fushiguro. Which is, by the way, I gotta say this real quick. Akutami must love incest or something, like a fucking weirdo, because there have been too many moments in this series where incest is just a common theme. Like, you literally have Yorozu in the body of Sumiki rubbing up on Sukuna and getting lovey-dovey with Sukuna in the body of Fushiguro. Incest. Mei grooming her little brother. Incest. My fucking getting, I don't want to say getting the hots, but that one scene where she thought Fushiguro was saying his type in girls or whatever, and having that weird little heart thing come out. Again, what the fuck? Is she getting the hots for her little blood-related cousin? Okay, whatever. That's just not an incest rant, but yeah, Yorozu just sucks, and she has no purpose as a character because her purpose would be long lasting. But of course, that never happened because, well, again, that little device she gave Sukuna just immediately got taken away right as Higuruin pulled out his domain expansion. So yeah, Yorozu sucks. Point blank, simple. Mei got character assassinated with one moment, and that's her grooming and getting all fucking weird with her brother and shit. Like, seriously? Are you joking, Akutami? You had a good setup for a character who only runs off of greed and shit, but then, oh, well, we gotta make it 2 steps even further and weirder and dumb and shit by having her be a fucking groomer, which, by the way, why the fuck would you make a groomer character a goddamn protagonist? You might as well just make a main character who just goes around raping everyone and then say, yeah, that's a main character and we have to be on his side. Really? Are you joking? Come on now, Akutami. You know better than that. And the fact that, again, no one bats an eye to anybody, or not anybody, no one bats an eye to Mei low-key grooming her little brother, but whatever, the series fucking sucks anyways and wants to just scoot on by everything. The series has a actual fantastic problem of somehow explaining everything and explaining nothing at the same time. It's so dumb, but whatever. Yeah, Mei got character assassinated instantly with the moment that her little brother was introduced. I don't get it. And yeah, and it's a shame because the idea of her being just a greedy sorcerer who only cares about just making money off of the business or whatever is a great character concept, but of course it just had to be ruined because Akutami loves to take things a step further, and then guess what? We got that bullshit. Miwa got done so dirty. She really could have been Sakura, but better. Like, really, in every sense of the word, she could have been, because a great character setup with her thinking she's useless and whatnot, but of course, Akutami just has to ruin it, because guess what? She ended up doing that stupid, goddamn, ridiculous fucking binding vow where she puts all of her strength into one attack, and the cost for it is she can't ever wield a sword again. So when she does the attack, guess what? Doesn't work, because nothing ever works for our protagonist in this series. And then now she is actually useless Miwa. Are you kidding me? She really could have had a fantastic setup. Just get rid of that stupid binding vow bullshit, and you have the setup for a character arc where she goes from being a fucking useless character to an absolute unit on the battlefield. But guess what? Don't get that, because Akutami, he just sucks as a writer. He sucks at everything, and yeah. And I really would like to go on and on for the female characters, but those are my absolute biggest problems, or my biggest pointers to why the female characters suck so bad in this series. Because I would like to say or go on a rant about Momo, but I can't say anything about Momo because she does nothing in this series. Urahime is the absolute same thing. She does nothing. And the biggest problem I have with Urahime is the fact that she has that big ass scar across her face, and yet there's no explanation of how she got it. But you know, fuck the reader, I guess. And I believe that's really it as far as I can remember. And that just goes to show how badly written the female characters in this series are. Now, I'm gonna get on to something that, you know, no one talks about, and it's the fucking narrator. I'm just gonna say it right now, this narrator is actually worse than the Hunter x Hunter narrator, and oh god, the Hunter x Hunter narrator is bad, don't get me wrong. Whenever that narrator showed up in Hunter x Hunter, you just knew that you were not gonna be watching Hunter x Hunter anymore. You were just gonna be just listening to some little asshole explain everything to you. But the JJK narrator is that on fucking goddamn steroids, crack, the devil's lettuce, every single goddamn drug you can ever imagine. That's the JJK narrator. And it's stupid. And this is the big problem with the narrator. He explains characters' feelings now. But okay, I can understand the narrator explaining abilities, okay? That is one of my biggest, critiques, I guess, about battle stories is that they will literally explain their ability out loud, but then get shocked that the guy they're explaining their ability to automatically just finds a counter to it. It's like, you just explained everything to, like, your opponent, so why are you shocked? So having the narrator explain an ability is actually, not a problem. But the problem with this is that the narrator over-explains everything. I mean, just fucking look at all these explanations for this.
Oh my God, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on, boy.
The narrator should not have just been a part of this series then. And even so, even if the narrator needed to fucking exist in this series, I gotta say, man, they could have at least dumbed down everything about this series. But, that never happened because the narrator loves over-explaining things. But I think the biggest sin the narrator commits in all of JJK is this. Whenever he actually starts explaining a character's fucking feelings, are you joking me? Dude, this is a goddamn comic book. And I know a lot of people say, well, actually, it's a manga. It's a manga. Manga is literally just Japanese comics. It literally even says in literal Shonen Jump comics. So I don't want to hear that argument. But it is a literal comic. You have pictures in front of you, and you're gonna have a goddamn narrator explain the feelings of a character. That is the only time that should ever exist is literally in fucking novels. But as far as I last checked up on JJK is actually a manga, but whatever. And then, are you gonna tell me that this is the face of a man who looks nervous? That is not the face of a man who looks nervous. That is the face of a man who looks like fucking mildly inconvenienced. And the fact that this narrator loves over-explaining everything, like that stupid goddamn nightmarish fucking panel of just him explaining Sukuna's fire arrow. What the fuck? By the way, that fire arrow explanation has got to be one of the worst explanations I've ever seen in a series. Because again, it's so goddamn long. It's so goddamn over-explained. Because, by the way, us, the audience, never knew that if Sukuna's fire arrow is actually really fucking, has that little drawback if he just uses it at first. But of course, binding vow, he can bypass it, binding vow, which makes no sense because, we didn't know that it was slow at first, but, go fuck yourself, Akutami says. I genuinely think the narrator is actually just Akutami explaining everything, and he loves to over-explain stuff. Akutami just sucks at explaining things in an actual coherent way. It's genuinely baffling and mind-blowing that this narrator actually even exists in this story. I can't stand this narrator. Narrators in comics should never be a thing because you have little pictures to explain. Like, if you want to do visual storytelling, you could at least have the characters show the face that they're feeling or whatever. But, Akutami would rather have a goddamn narrator explain that. And again, going back to the pictures argument, not pictures argument, the fact that it's a comic book, you could have had the characters explain their thoughts and feelings and worries or whatever in their head. But, no, don't do that. None of that. Gotta fucking put a stop to that. You gotta have the narrator explain it, because God forbid the characters actually be characters instead of having a goddamn fucking narrator coming in out of nowhere just to swoop all that under the rug to explain the character. Are you joking? Are you kidding me? Fuck yourself. Okay. I gotta calm down. I'm very sorry. So I just want to talk about two more things, and then I'm done. This long-ass video's rant could finally come to an end. But I gotta talk about how bollocks and how just bullshit and just everything and just how bad the power system is in this series. Oh my god. Okay. I've never seen a loose power system so much in my life, and that's the problem. The power system in this series tries so hard to be air quotes complex. It really does. And in my personal, honest to God opinion, power systems do not need to be confusing. The only pass I can give it is Hunter x Hunter. But the only thing that gives Hunter x Hunter its pass is because of the fact that there's multiple types of Nen properties. So, of course, I can understand where the confusion comes from there. But for JJK, you have one thing going for you, and it's cursed energy. That's it. You don't got any of the other latent, there's no branches of cursed energy or whatever. You have cursed energy, and you have a cursed technique. Boom, there, done, dust your hands off, Bob's your uncle, whatever the fuck. It's simple and easy to understand. But Akutami love to do some bullshit where it's like this. Where you will have a character that will explain their ability, but then guess motherfucking what, buddy? They will explain their ability. They will fucking make their ability so complicated that it is so hard to understand. That, by the way, that's actually the reason why Kirara never showed up in the series, if that's true, by the way. Because I want to say this first. I don't know if this information is true, and I never bothered to look it up, but knowing Akutami, I'm pretty sure that's the case. But there's an interview that I found out, or not really found out, but I know about, where the reason why Kirara never showed up again in the whole series is because Akutami was confused by his ability, and then that's why he never brought him back in the series again. And it's so... Oh my god. Akutami, you got nobody else to blame but yourself for that one. You over-explained the ability. You got no one to blame but yourself. And another thing that I personally really hate about this series is whenever they get all scientific with this series. This is a series where it basically has magic in it. I know that's blasphemous to say because it's actually cursed energy or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's borderline magic, basically, considering that these people are sorcerers, and sorcerers delve, or is in most mythologies, or not really mythologies, but in anything, they dive into magic, basically, and cursed energy might as well just basically be magic, and, nothing wrong with that, but it's at the end of the day, it's magic, basically. It might as well be. And you're going to have all this scientific-ass explanations for these abilities. I hate that with a passion. There's no reason to have scientific explanations in your series. That's why I also hate the fucking quirk system from My Hero. Because they try to make everything scientific, but then it's like, why do you need to have scientific bullshit in your series? It makes no sense. It makes no fucking sense. Why can't you just let the audience just suspend their disbelief at the fact that there's magic in this series, basically? But instead, you gotta treat the audience like they're an idiot and have to scientifically explain shit. Like, what is the purpose of having a scientific-ass explanation for magic? Why? Why? What? Why? And the loose bit of the power system I'm talking about is how everything just can get bypassed with a binding vow. Because at that point, it's not even cursed energy, it's now binding vow. Because then a lot of characters should just do this bullshit where they just make their techniques inherently stronger or whatever by just making a binding vow where they just limit themselves and whatever. Nanami literally does that. He literally limits his overall cursed energy, either output or something like that. I'm already kind of forgetting what it was, but once he reaches overtime, all of a sudden his cursed energy is just exploded in value or whatever. I'm forgetting, and that's literally what happens. He literally purposely kind of just makes himself weaker at first, which is fine, and that's not too terrible of an idea. But then when all Sukuna started doing all this binding vow nonsense, where That's when I realized this series should have just made all of its characters just use binding vows, and so that they can just be stronger. And, but whatever. This series loves to insult everyone's intelligence anyways, so. And finally, the ending. This ending is so fucking bad. Oh my god. This ending actually genuinely is some of the worst endings I've ever seen in all of anime and manga. Because for some reason, anime and manga love having crap endings, and this is up there with some of the shittiest out there. And I just don't get why Akutami made this ending the way he did. He dropped too many little bit of nuggets of information again, like this stupid ass person being with Takaba, who looks like Kenjaku or Gito because of the hair, but obviously we don't know if it's actually him because, let's block his face out with a fucking dialogue box because, we're so quirky. I'm so mysterious. I'm so enigmatic with my story. I love doing this and that and the other when I could just, tie everything up into a beautiful little knot for the ending of my series. But instead, I'd rather make this so that I would rather make everything so fucking mysterious and enigmatic because I'm a fucking idiot. I just don't get why Akutami did the ending the way he did, and having the ending of the series make it so that that it's actually just like another mission for Yuji and Nobara and Fushiguro to have for its ending, only for it to just be a sham mission. That's actually just, well, guys, I was just a little bit of a clown, a little bit of a goofy goober. I was just back then a little bit silly. I could have helped against the battle of Sukuna, but my mom didn't want me to do it. Really? So instead of, having a very emotional scene of everyone mourning Gojo's death with a funeral scene, which a funeral scene for Gojo is not you just wanted it to happen. No, it is a must need. Gojo is the entire reason why all these characters are even here in the first place. And yet, they don't even bother. They don't even bother fucking mentioning him again after he's dead. Oh my fucking god, this series is so bad. And then, what makes it worse is that I love coming across these videos or memes or whatever on Instagram where it says no one treated Gojo like a human except for these characters, and it's like Yuji, Yuta, Gito when he was a good guy, and I'm forgetting the other character, but I know there was a fourth character up there. I think it was Shoko, and I love seeing that because it then makes me realize that has to be complete bullshit because oh my god, this series is so fucking bad. Yuji doesn't mention him ever again because for some reason, no, it's not even that. Gojo says that he just kind of wishes to be forgotten when he dies or whatever. And then Yuji just says that, he won't forget him and whatever. But then he proceeds to not mention him again, despite everything blowing over. Yuta doesn't do that. Fucking Shoko doesn't do that. You'd think that she would, but she doesn't. And oh my god, this series. And Fushiguro having a funeral scene for Toji, the guy that has been gone from his entire life. He rather would have a funeral for Toji than Gojo, who has actually been more of a father figure than Toji, which, don't get me wrong, Toji isn't completely the worst father alive, because at least he gave a shit for his kid, but the thing is that Gojo has been there more than his own dad, and you're gonna tell me that he's not gonna mourn him, his actual borderline father figure? Okay, Akutami, again, I know what kind of man you are. And yeah, and then I gotta say this, man. That color spread of all the characters, for the final chapter, oh man, it proves my point that Sakuma was nothing but an afterthought. She is nowhere in that thing. And I want someone to point out where the fuck she could be, bro. I really do. And I gotta have no eyes or something like that, like a fucking mole, where I have to be like blind as shit, where I just can't see her. Because if she is actually there, I need someone to point out. But if she's not there, again, that proves my point that Sakuma was nothing but an afterthought character, where she is only there to serve one purpose, which that purpose immediately gets shattered. But then, go fuck yourself. That's what Akutami says. And I forgot to mention this, but what was the point of making everyone fear for Yuta's life because of him swapping bodies with Kenjaku if he was just going to have no consequences into getting back into his body? Seriously, listen, I love Yuta. I know everyone's going to call me a Bush camper fan because that's basically what Yuta did, but I don't care. I really don't. Yuta actually followed through with this promise, unlike Gojo, but then again, Gojo died because of plot armor, and the story needed to have Yuji fight Sukuna, but that wouldn't be a problem to, Akutami just didn't make Gojo as strong as he did, but, fuck yourself. That's what Akutami says. He has full creative control over his story, by the way. He could have easily made Gojo not that strong, but he did it anyways, and he wrote himself into a corner. But fuck yourself. Again, that's what Akutami says. And I just don't get it. I don't get why they made it seem like a big deal that that Yuta is possibly gonna die or whatever because of him swapping bodies, and then that never happened. So, yeah, that's another big problem with the ending. Now, I gotta say this is actually one last thing I have to say, I promise, and then I'm finally gonna wrap this video up. Okay, I am tired of seeing any critique towards JJK, and then anybody hits the critique with, it's realistic though. The realistic argument has got to be some of the most dumbest shit I've ever seen from the JJK fan base. You cannot say this series is realistic when you got curses going around, you got a power system going around, and all this, and monsters and all that, and you can't be saying it's realistic though, because if a story was truly realistic, it would actually take place in the real world, and then everything would make more sense for why the characters act the way they do. But in this series, guess what? Fuck yourself, because they decide to go the route where everything is just completely nonsensical. Because I get the whole theme of this story. At first, I thought life is unfair, but then that doesn't make sense though, because yes, life is unfair. I'm not going to deny that. Life is about as unfair as you can get. But the problem is that in the midst of unfairness in life, there will always be something beautiful waiting for you. That's just how I see life anyways. And yet there's nothing that shows that, because this series after Shibuya was nothing but miserable because of how every single one of the characters were acting. And I get why. Shibuya was a bad moment in the series. It's not like it was a bad arc or anything, but in the story, it was a bad event basically. So of course I can understand why a lot of characters were miserable and whatever, but they could have easily had these characters bounce back and be all jovial and shit. But nah, go fuck yourself. That's Akutami's that's just how Akutami writes his series in a nutshell. He just loves the term fuck yourself. And that's what Akutami does. So, and that's what I'm also going to say about the realistic argument. Fuck the realistic argument. That argument just doesn't work, because of not only the setting, but also how some of the characters just react and stuff. Like, you can't just do this. You just don't, okay? You don't have a father figure in your life, and then when they finally die, you just ignore them. You don't mention them ever again. That's not how it works. You are going to be constantly thinking about them. And to have almost every single character in this story, but Yuji, somewhat, by the way, even remotely mention Gojo is stupid. It really is stupid. But, again, fuck yourself. That's what Akutami does. Alright,
that finally ends this video. I know, a very long video, and I apologize. But I just had to let my feelings out. I really did. I just can't hold I just can't hold my frustrations for the series anymore. But, man, I just kind of wish that this story didn't fall off as hard as it did. Akutami should have just had better editors, or his editors should have had actual pushback against Akutami, because you can't write some of this stuff and genuinely think it's good. But then again, Akutami clearly was giving up on this series by how quick he was making everything go. And there's nothing wrong with fast-paced stories, but like I said earlier in the video, you can't just go from point A, point B, point C, point D, point E, and all that nonsense without any consequences or anything like that. But that's what Akutami did, unfortunately. So, yeah, seeing this series fall off so hard, it saddens me. And all I'm going to say is that if I time traveled back to 2020, where I saw my younger self and I told him JJK sucks, he probably wouldn't believe me, because he would probably say that this was peak. And unfortunately, JJK is not peak anymore. It is really bad, and it sucks to say that. It really sucks. I don't want to say it just sucks. It really sucks. It super sucks. It super duper fucking sucks. And yeah, so that's just my honest thoughts about my feelings about JJK. So to really actually answer the question, I know I did it all the way in the beginning of this video, but was JJK really that bad? Yes. Yes, the fuck it was. Anyways, I'm out. I'll talk to y'all later in a new video, maybe. I don't know. But like the video if you did, and subscribe. And I'll talk to y'all later.